But
All right.
what? So right. So yeah. So to it's written so harmonized with the personality profile
Yeah.
that that they just see it a couple of times and have a couple of rehearsals and they've already got it. It's not somebody else's words. So many sales scripts are written by some other guy in some other decade, and we've got to learn it and then try and apply it to our bloody business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's so much that gets lost. This process that I put in 2016 is right. I'm going to write it for you. I'm scripting it with you, and we're going to do it together. And as I script each line, I'm going to tell you what technique I'm using in the language patterns, so you will know why it works, and you will come away from this knowing about high level neuroscience persuasion that you had no idea. So you'll know what's going on,
Mhm.
and you'll understand why you need to say it in the right order, and you cannot change anything and you cannot add things or take things away, because the minute you do that, you invalidate the formula that's embedded in it. And I took it through, so I take them through it and I write the sentence and I'll say, right, let me just show you what I've done. Those words here, this here, that is called, that's called whatever it is, that's called an embedded command. This is how it works. When you say it, just say that, right? And they'll say it and they'll say, okay, when you say that, this is the effect it has. And we go through, it takes a long time, but when we're finished, they understand everything we've been through. They learn it in 2 days. They come back to do a role play. Inevitably, the first time they do the role play, it's pretty much nailed. It's almost perfect, and then they go from that. I make them do 2 or 3 until it is perfect, and then I let them loose on their own discovery calls, and they go straight into 50% conversion immediately.
That's
One
insane.
in two,
You
one
know,
in two, straight away.
just anyway.
It's unbelievable. It's
Well, it's
unreal.
interesting. So many coaches, I think, are, or entrepreneurs in general, are so afraid of, or have a perception that you have to be a certain personality type to be great at sales. And when I look in my industry,
Yeah.
and there's such a wide range of kooky personality types, and some are entertainers, some are extroverts, some are super like low talkers, like really introverted low talkers, and they crush it. So that's a lie.
Yeah,
That's a lie we tell
it
ourselves. I
is.
can't sell. Anyone can learn to sell with the right.
And what's happened? Here's something that you've just reminded me of, right? And I was talking about this in a room on Clubhouse the other day. It was one of these rooms about introverts and extroverts.
Mhm.
And since lockdown and since virtual selling took over, introverts are outselling extroverts in almost every industry. And that's because introverts they get energy from being alone and lose energy in crowds. Extroverts gain energy by being around people and lose energy when they're alone. That's the difference between an extrovert and an introvert. That's it. All this stuff about being loud and shy and all that, that's just our interpretation. But the reality is an introvert, when they're alone, they refuel, their energy refuels. When they go into a crowd, they start losing it quickly. An extrovert cannot summon up energy when they're alone. Put them in a crowd of people, the energy just they refuel instantly and they come alive. Take them away from the crowd, the battery just goes straight away. That's their total opposites. And what's happened is the virtual selling, where they're working from home alone with a screen, the extroverts are blowing it out the water, and the introverts can't sell because they're fidgety. There's no people. They can't stay focused on a screen and listen to two people. They need stimulation. They start this, they do that, they don't get anything done. All they do all day is just dick about,
Yeah,
trying to
to me.
they can't they haven't got people to bounce off. So they've struggled. Extroverts have struggled with virtual selling. Introverts have come into their own. It's the perfect situation for an introvert.
That's hilarious.
And that was incredible when I saw the stats on that.
Faster.
So yeah, it is. Okay, so
I haven't even introduced you. We just got on this roll of a conversation. So I want to introduce the audience today to Paul Atherton. Paul is the #1 sales trainer in the UK. He is sitting in Bali right now at 1:30 in the morning. So bless your heart for, for being here for our audience. Tell us a little bit about your Genius Zone.
My goodness. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to have an opportunity to add some value to any community. So thanks, Adrian. It's a pleasure to meet you, and it's a pleasure to have this opportunity. I guess it's like so many people, I don't see it as genius, but it's lovely to have a compliment like that. Thank you. So I don't think there's such thing as a born salesperson, but I believe we are all born with genetically predispositions to certain skills and certain activities. So, you know, some people are mechanically minded and some people are artistically minded. So there's definitely a genetic factor. And then upbringing and nurture is ultimately very influential too. But ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated by the whole idea of potential, and that we could achieve a lot more than we thought, but we didn't know how much we could achieve until we really pushed ourselves. And it's only then that you know and you find out. That was fascinating to me. And also the idea that how you think creates your reality. I discovered that at 7 years old, and that was a complete game changer. The way I think changes the way I see the world. Wow. I can play with that. So ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated with, I didn't call it, I didn't know what it was called then. Now I know what it's called. It's you know, it's personal development. It's basically psychology. It's psychology of communication and the psychology of performance and success. But I didn't know what it was called then. And even that definition just now doesn't nail it, but it's basically the psychology. So the thinking, it's about the thinking that leads to the best performance you can get from yourself. That how you think affects your own personal performance, and then how you can help others to think so that they can perform at their best. That's probably the most basic level. And I guess that because I've been so fascinated by it for 40 odd years, and it still is a fascination, and I'm a student, not a master, because I've had that fascination, I've learned the skills, invested in loads of programs with real masters, and been fortunate enough to be able to get paid to do it and to teach others to do it, which is just the biggest privilege there is.
I could not agree more that mindset is the #1 obstacle. It's our belief systems about who we are,
Yeah.
and what we think and what we can and cannot do that will make or break us. But I think anyone who gets into the coaching or consulting world has a natural curiosity about what makes people tick. You have a natural interest in people. And that for me is what you need to leverage in any sales conversation. So we were talking a little bit earlier about how you work with your clients and how you come up with a sales script that really fits their personality. We need to go back and talk about that again because I didn't have the record button on.
Okay, sure. Okay, so these are, I've got to tell a bit of a story with each one of these to give it context. But I'll try and collapse the stories so that they're concise and I don't bore your listeners. So in my 20s, I worked with a bank. It was a very sales-oriented bank. And as part of that, when we were manager level, we were given training on Myers-Briggs personality profiling. And they did it because they wanted us to be able to recruit different personality types for different jobs. So we had complementary personalities in teams. So that was the objective. So we could have and interview people whose personality suited the role, and we could have complementary personalities in a team. And it worked very well. And then once I left the bank and went into the home improvement world, I just forgot about it.
Mhm.
I just kind of unconsciously didn't see it as being necessary anymore. And I didn't really give it another thought until 2 years after I started my coaching business, which was 2013 I started. 2015, by that time, I had established the coaching business. I had clients, and it was a sustainable business now, and I got stability, which was terrific. And I wanted to serve more people. I wanted to reach more people, and I wanted to make, even though I was getting good results from my clients, I wanted to get the best results. I was always obsessed with what is the best, and I've always been obsessed with the perfect sales pitch, the perfect sales conversation. What is that? What does it look like? What is the perfect sales conversation? And I was captivated by the movie Inception,
Mhm. Mhm.
which the core of that movie is this idea that they had to plant the seed of an idea in the mind of their target to get him to break up his late father's business empire. And they had to do that because they could have convinced him under pressure. They could have convinced him to do it at gunpoint. They would have got compliance, but he'd have changed it later. So they had to get it into his head as a raw seed of an idea. And then when the idea became fully formed, it was his idea. So he had the idea for himself, and he thought it was his. Right, I need to break my father's business up. That's the right thing to do. If they could achieve that,
Mhm.
then their end result is achieved, and he would never know what had happened. He will always think it's his idea. That gripped me. And I was like, okay, that's what the ultimate sales process is. And not from a point of view of not the unethical side, how to make people do things you don't know. It was the perfect situation is that you find out what somebody needs and wants, you find out what problems they've got that they don't want, and what goals they haven't achieved that they do want. You spot what's missing in their skills and abilities, and you you need for them to want to do something about it now, and you need for them to accept that anything worth having is not going to be the cheapest. And almost every buying decision they've ever made, they've ended up paying more than they originally thought, but it's been worth it. And I need for them to want to do it now
Mhm.
and to have no doubts. And if I can get them to have the idea to want to buy it now rather than me having to persuade and close and convince,
Mhm.
it's a far nicer experience for them. It's much nicer for them to feel that they're in control and to be the ones saying, you know what, I think I'd like to do this. And that is far more rewarding if it's a buying experience, if it's a client buying experience, than if I'm doing a selling job and achieving, I'm still giving them the same value, but I'm achieving it through force rather than through attraction and through pulling. So it's almost I'm pushing rather than pulling.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think what a lot of people are really afraid of is, once you kind of uncover those pain indicators and pain points, is that a good sales call is you just keep prodding and picking at the pain points, but
Yeah.
that ultimately is a super fear based, scarcity based, uncomfortable sales process. So how do you get
It
down to
is.
that the core desire, your whys, why me, why now, why the solution, why it hasn't worked in the past, and get them coming to you?
Yeah. Um, and even though I was brought up in the 80s. I started selling in the 80s, so it was all about the 80s was all about the money, and greed was good and all that stuff, and all this sort of macho stuff of closing the sale. And I was brought up on that, and I was 18 years old. I loved it. But as I got into my 20s and 30s, I was highly effective at being able to make a sale and teach others how to make a sale in a rhythmic step process, and by closing and by assertion. But I always felt there was a better way. I always realized that what we were doing, even though we were giving people great value and ultimately an excellent product, and it was all ethical, I felt that we were always convincing and persuading. So there was always a degree of push. And I intuitively just knew that there must be a smarter way than push. And it was when, after watching Inception and being really captivated by this idea, and after having years of knowing that there's an easier way, it came to me one day, why have I not used the personality profiling? Because if I can get my clients to take a Myers-Briggs test, I can tear that apart and put it together, and I know exactly how that works. I've not lost that ability. And I can then write a script that is totally synergized to that personality type. I can write an entire sales script which matches how they think, how they speak, how they would act. So it's totally natural. And therefore, when my clients learn it, there will not be any acting or falseness or even any feeling of being inauthentic, because it's exactly how they communicate. And if I actually designed it with them, scripted it with them, and explained what I was doing with every line, so I explained that the persuasion is embedded and is it's undetectable. It will feel to their client like a conversation. There won't be any need for push, because this is sophisticated neuroscience-based persuasion that's based on inspiration rather than pressure, but it's below the surface of the consciousness. So what happens is your client thinks they're having a lot of conversation, and it's just a natural flowing conversation. And all they do notice is, as the conversation is progressing, they're trusting you more, and they have a feeling that they really want to work with you more. And when you come to the conclusion of the conversation, all you need to do is actually say, so look, I hope I've answered all your questions. I hope you found, when I've given you the options and the recommendations, I hope you found that, food for thought. So what's a good next step for you? And 50% of the time they will say, well, I never thought I was going to say this, but I'm ready to go ahead. And that to me was the ultimate. That was nirvana of sales.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, I tested it myself because I had to do that, and it worked. But that's a little bit of a weighted test because I was already a professional. So I then took it to some of my clients. They immediately went straight into 50% conversion. So 1 in 2 of every sales conversation they had, they would have this, well, I'm ready to go ahead. And I said, you must not close. You must not close. You must say, what's a good next step for you? And we discovered something else, which actually is going to, this next piece for your listeners is the biggest discovery I made. And it's when you hear it, you love it. But I even wasn't satisfied that my clients were able to make it work, because they were already working with me. So they'd already crossed over from the other shore, and they loved sales now. So they'd made that. So I needed to get raw material. So I needed to test this with people who were still nervous of selling and still suspicious of selling, and still had the belief system that I'd rather not sell. I'm not a salesperson. That's not me. I needed to have that to work with. So what I then did was I I put out some videos on LinkedIn, and I kind of did a very soft launch of this. And I said, look, I'm looking for some people. This is what it is. I'd like to design for you a personality profile synergized sales script, and I want you to test it. And if you get great results, then you can pay. And if you don't get great results, I'm going to thank you for your time, and I'm going to go back to the drawing board. And lo and behold, there was 20, 25 people. So did the process. They come to me, I do the personality test, I find out who their clients are, I find out what the current sales process is, what their clients' personalities are. I sort of question what their avatar was, yes, who their buyer was. And I learned that. And then I got them back on a call, and together on a shared screen, I would write the script line by line, and I would explain with them on every line, every sentence, this is what I'm embedding, this is the technique we're using here, and this is how you will say it, so that for your personality it feels natural and it won't feel forced. Just try that now, read that. And they'd read it, and I'd say, did that feel? No, it doesn't. Good, because that's good, because that's what your personality type should find easy. So it's the more we went through it, they were getting excited in the scripting phase, and by the end of the script, they had understood the entire process. They understood the techniques that were being used. They were part of the process and had helped co-create. So they'd actually been on a mental journey, which in itself took them from mistrust of sales to, I love this. That in itself achieved that massive transference from I hate sales and I don't trust it to, if this is what sales is. It was fascinating. And then I'd say, right, go away for 2 days, read it, practice, come back. We're going to do a filmed role play, just you and me. No one else is going to see it. We're going to video it. And almost all of them came back, and on the first role play, it was pretty much perfect, because it was all synergized to their personality. And I did another one for good measure, and then I said, okay, line yourself up with a stack of appointments, which they all did. And then every one of them, bar one, immediately got 50% of their customers buying. And I'll stress that none of them closed. Other than one person, 50% of their customers were buying. And the one person who wasn't had actually got worse. So I was like, what are you doing, Michelle? Oh, I'm doing what you're saying. So I said, right, send me your videos. And I got the videos, and she was watering it down. So she was changing words and stuff. And of course, if you change a mathematical formula, you end up with a nonsense number at the end. You know, I don't know what you're going to get if you change this. And because it was all embedded with persuasion, you change a word innocently. You don't know what you're doing. You're decoding the whole thing. You're taking the juice out of it. So that was it. And then, you know, once she got that, I was able to correct it. But what blew my mind was that I was able to take people who were, 1 minute they were, I don't really like sales. It's not for me. I've never really, and you know, I just want to be a coach. I just want to be able to do my health coaching or my spiritual coaching or my life coaching or my NLP coaching, which I'm passionate about. I just wish I didn't have to do this sales bit. So I was able to take them from that to, wow, that process was fascinating, I love it, to a perfect role play, to then within a week having conversations, and 50% of the people were saying, I didn't think I was ready to do this, but I want to go with you. And their lives changed because their income doubled overnight, and it literally was. And this is all documented. I've got all the testimonials on the resource I'm going to give your listeners later, so they'll actually be able to see evidence of all of this on the resource that you're going to get later. Awesome. I've got 50 videos, all the coaching, live sessions. You're going to see it.
I love it.
So everything is all documented. I tested it. It's all legitimate, no exaggeration. It's
Swear to God,
fact.
it works. You know what I love about this the most is I think people have I think sales is a bad word for people because they're doing it wrong. I mean, they're going into a sales conversation and instead of being their objective to open the person up, their objective is to tell, like just to vomit all over the
Yeah,
person what their deliverables are and what they do and why they do it. And nobody likes that. Nobody likes to sit there
yeah,
give a half
yeah,
an hour elevator pitch.
yeah.
It's not, it doesn't feel good for anyone. And
No,
that's why, getting solid skills and training to help guide that conversation with a process with the right words so that you can actually lean back and open up and allow your client to relax and open up and generate a real authentic conversation,
yeah,
consultatively. It's like the Columbo, you kind
yeah,
of so
yeah.
what do you think?
It
Like,
is. Yeah, it is.
I love,
And as part of that process, and to today, that's the number one service I offer. People just love it because it achieves everything, and it dawns on them that hang on, sales is actually nothing more than a way of communicating. It's just a communication method. It's actually just like another language, and I'm learning to speak a language that enables me to get people's trust quickly, find out what their problems are, prescribe a solution that's going to work for them, remove their fear, build their confidence, help them to choose something that's affordable that will solve their problems and get them to where they want to be, and then have them at a stage where they're willing to begin, take action, pay for it, and then put it to full use. Sales is just a language. It's just a communication method to achieve that journey. So see it as if and people who speak fluent sales are able to make that transformation. People who don't speak fluent sales, they have to resort to other techniques. And if I said to you, you need to learn another language in order to be really effective at your job, would you say, oh no, I feel a bit ashamed learning another language? It would feel manipulative learning a foreign language. Or I don't think I was cut out to learn a foreign language. We wouldn't have any of that. It sounds ridiculous. The
yeah,
minute you say sales, then we have all these stories. Now,
yeah,
let me tell you, what I've just described is what sales is.
yeah.
Anything that isn't that is not sales. So lies is not sales. Pressure is not sales. Manipulation is not sales. What they are is lies, pressure, and manipulation, but they're not sales.
I want,
And
I want,
that's my message: is that
yeah.
sales is a form of love. It's a form of the highest service. That's what it is, and it's a way of communicating that's a slightly different language that is based on neuroscience. It's one of the most desirable skills one could ever aspire to learn, but it's become poisoned by society and the media and just a whole lot of illusions that leave people feeling that it's this scary thing. And what I've found that I've got an ability to do is to smash through all of that crap, frankly, and enable people to see the truth, which is then they're free.
The one word that has not come up in this entire conversation is objections. So
Hmm.
the one thing that kind of struck me as you were talking is when you craft a powerful sales conversation, what happens to the objections and what objections are left at the end of that conversation?
Um, every objection that so let's just qualify it. An objection is we call it an objection. This is just like lingo.
Yeah.
But all it is a customer, however it comes out is there's a subtitle. The subtitle should be, I don't feel certain enough yet. So it seems like a lot of money. I don't feel certain it's going to give me that much value yet. That's all they're saying. I don't feel ready to buy at the moment. I don't feel certain that this is the right thing. I don't feel certain about you. I've only just met you. I need I need to feel a lot more certainty before. This is what people are saying. It all boils down to that. I'm not convinced. I'm not certain. I need to feel certainty. Help me feel that. So what you can do is you can avoid all of that and wait until the end of the conversation, and you can do what the traditional old-fashioned way of selling is you ask them, would you like to buy, in a number of, you can do it in one of 1,000 ways. And when you ask that question, then they raise objections, which is a list of ways of saying I'm not certain. And then what you do is you have pre-rehearsed scripted things called rebuttals, which is another weird thing, but they're pre-rehearsed antidotes that when you say them, they're supposed to be like sprinkling magic dust over people, and they just go, oh, I'm fine now, I'm happy to go ahead. And whilst I'm making fun of it, whilst that can be trained and can work, there's an easier way.
Yeah.
And the easier way is at the very, very early stages when you meet them, before you even suggest that you might recommend a particular course of action, before you introduce a service, before you suggest that they do anything, you ask questions and you discover all of their circumstances, and you discover and gather information on the problems that they have but don't want, the goals that they don't have but do want, the history of chasing the goals that they've never been able to achieve and keep hold of, the history of never being able to eliminate the problems that just won't go away, the future of the problem that won't go away if they don't do anything about it, the future of the goals that they've never been able to achieve if they don't do anything about it, and the means. So what is available to them if they found the perfect solution? Are they in a position where they are able to fund it right now, or would they need a bit of help, or would they need a bit of time? And are they in a position where they like to run things past and consult with a confidant or a family member, or run their decisions past others, or are they happy to make decisions by themselves? And I want to gather all that information so that I can serve them at the highest level, and I can tailor what I do for their circumstances, their budget, their preferences, and their process.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that information to try and force them to do what they're not ready to do. I want the information so that I can act in synergy with it.
Mm-hmm.
And what this personality synergized process achieves exactly that. And therefore, when the end of the conversation, when you find yourself at the end of the conversation and you say, so what's a good next step for you? There are no objections left, because
Mm-hmm.
you've already established earlier on that it's affordable. You've already established earlier on that they would be happy to proceed today, so long as and providing they had absolute certainty that it's the right thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to work,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be happy with it, that it's worth the money. I think that's about it. There aren't any other.
Yeah.
So all of it, you invest some time early on to gather information and then communicate in a way that reassures them, so that by the time you get to the end, you are not leaving a whole bag full of concerns that only are revealed when you ask them to make a decision. And then when you ask them to make a decision, you get all of this stuff that's left, which is a collection of thoughts that come out, which is, I'm not convinced. And if you try and then tackle them, it's actually too late. It then begins to feel like pressure. They then sense they're trying to convince me. I'm on the end of being persuaded. And that's when they just want to run for it. They just want to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And people will even resort to saying, look, I've got to go, I promise I'll phone you next week, and they'll even promise things that they just to get out of there.
Mhm.
And for me, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way than that.
And I don't think there is a single sales call in the world that, the prospect doesn't come in with an exit strategy, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's just opening the can of worms and getting all, they say the no's, getting all the no's just leads to the next yes. I have a very different viewpoint on getting to the no's. I want to get all the no's out. I want to get all the no's on the table. I want to get all the think about it's on the table. I want to get all the, like you said, I need to talk to my husband, or my dog might need braces next week, or what. I want to get it all on the table, take all the energy out of it, for one,
Yep.
get all their excuses out, right? And if it's a real condition, it may come up again, but that we know that that's a condition and not an exit strategy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. I want to come back to something because I said a little earlier, I made a discovery. I'm waiting until you hear it. So let me just cover that. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Right.
Goal.
Right. Something that I noticed in all of my experience, when it came back to me and I realized that I'd never consciously observed it and thought about it before, but I'd always known it subconsciously. And this is it. When you sell and close, you achieve a sale, you think, but you actually achieve compliance.
Mm.
You are convincing somebody into doing something. It doesn't change that you're still offering them great value, but they leave that transaction feeling and knowing that they got convinced, they got persuaded. And whether that's negative or not, I'm just saying they're just aware that they were, that it was made logical, logical arguments were made, and they were talked into it. Even if it was done very nicely and they're comfortable with it, they're aware that they were talked into it.
Mm-hmm.
When the alternative happens, and when it's a discussion where the salesperson is doing 20% of the talking just by asking questions, and the customer is doing 80% of the talking by answering questions and talking about their circumstances, explaining what they want and need. And when it comes to the end and you say, what's a good next step for you? Everybody now, just think about this. I want you to imagine this. When in your life, you, either by yourself or with a partner, and you've gone out and you've been looking for something. It could be a holiday, could be a car, could be the diamond ring, could be, but it's something big. Could be a beautiful sunroom for the home, an extension. It's something big. There's a moment when you look at each other and you say, what do you think, love? Should we do this? And you planned an exit strategy before, but it's changed. And you're now thinking, should we do this? And you look at each other and it's like, we deserve this. Should we do it? Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, we're going to do this. In that moment, they they experience what I call a buyer's high.
Mm-hmm.
In that, should we do this? We deserve this. Yeah, I'm having this. We deserve it. And even if it's not with a partner, you're like, do you know what? I'm going to give this to myself because I deserve this. All the crap I've put up with the last 2 years, I'm having this. I deserve it. In that moment, when they do the buying,
yeah,
they trigger a dopamine release. They trigger all the chemicals that they experience an effect as if the product they own it already and it's already doing its job. The brain believes that the product's already working. The brain believes that it's happening. So therefore it releases the pleasure chemicals. It releases the same chemicals that all dopamine, which is the reward chemical that you get when you eat, when you have sex, when you have coffee, there's a little bit, say, in tobacco, cocaine, alcohol, everything that, all the sort of pseudo ways of feeling good, or even natural ways, that chemical, dopamine, that release chemical is the pleasure chemical.
Mhm.
When somebody buys, in the moment that they say, do you know what, I'm going to do this. Yeah, we deserve this. Let's do it. They release dopamine. And that's the buyer's high. And it feels great. And that gave birth to the old phrase, people hate to be sold to, but they love to buy. I've just explained from a neuroscience perspective why it is they love to buy.
Mhm.
Now, when you think you're a great salesperson and you close the deal, you rob them of the buyer's high because they don't get to have that experience. You
Mhm.
bypass it with your sophisticated way of talking them into saying yes. And you think and I used to be the same. I closed that deal. I'm the man. I'm a closer. But I've just robbed them of a highly pleasurable experience, which makes buying pleasurable. That moment when I deserve this, and that's what buying is about. That's why we love it.
Mhm. That's why we love the
So
deal. That's my favorite moment in a
yeah.
deal, when they look at each other and
So
they're like, "We're gonna do this," and I'm like, "Yeah."
yeah. So that's why you can't close. It's like, do not close the sale. You've got to set it up so that at the end, when you say, what would you like to do, guys? What do you think is a good next step for you? You really don't mind. You've got no preference. And 50% of them will say, Paul, it's not for us. And they know they're safe saying that, because right at the start, you told them they were safe saying no.
Yeah.
When you tend to tell somebody they're safe saying no, they don't feel that they need to sell you a think about it. So half of them, I promise you, with my best coaching, my best efforts, if I take everything I've ever learned in the world and I give you my very best, I promise you 50% failure.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
Garrett.
promise you 50% rejection. Half of them with the best I can produce, my very best, I cannot get more than 50. So half of them will say, thank you, Paul. What you've done has been incredible, and you've given us a lovely service, and we think you're like, it's been lovely, but it's just not for us. And I'll say, thanks, guys. I actually had a feeling a little earlier it wasn't, but I didn't want to do half a job. So thanks for your time. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and my door's always open. And it doesn't stop you referring friends to me, or relatives or colleagues or whatever, because we've got the referral scheme. And I leave them. I want them to leave feeling good. I want them to leave feeling they're just as important and respected as somebody who has bought. I need them to know that the currency to have my respect is not that they've got to buy. They're worth just the same if they do or do not. Now, what I get 50%, but the other 50% will say, do you know what? I think we're ready to do this. And if I see any hesitation, what I'll do at that stage is I'll say, do you know what? You haven't had any time alone since we've been talking. It's just been the three of us. I think you need a couple of minutes to have a chat without me present, don't you? So you can decide what you really want to do. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go and refresh the coffees. I'll be back in 5 minutes. If you need longer, just tell me. And then whenever you're ready, I'll come back in. And I do it online as well when I'm doing a Zoom call. If there's two people, I'll say, look, you guys haven't had time to chat without me present, and you need that. Otherwise, you make a decision now, you'll confer afterwards, and I want you to make the right decision. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to have time without me present. Put me on hold, put your video off, put your volume off. I've got a few messages. I'll get myself a cup of coffee. When you're ready, unmute and put the video back on once you've had a chat, and tell me what you think's the best thing to do for yourselves. Is that okay? And they appreciate it.
Mhm.
And then they have a chance to revisit the pact they made with each other, where they said, look, we agreed earlier we weren't going to buy anything, but we didn't. This has been, what do you think? I mean, I think we should do this. What do you think? Well, I feel the same. They have a chance to have that private conversation, and when they come back, they buy. They
Mhm.
buy from me. They come back and they say, Paul, we'd like to do this.
Mhm.
And if they come back and say, Paul, it's not for us, I don't try and convince them.
Mhm.
I don't.
Well, the other
It's
thing
done.
that comes up is when you have done a great job in the upfront and 50% decline, you don't walk away feeling like I blew it. What did I miss? I failed to serve them. Like that is as deadly as them walking away feeling like you've bullied them into something.
Yeah,
Because, especially for an entrepreneur, your business, your heart, your soul, everything you are and do and be is on the line. You want to be there and serve them and show up 100%. And if you walk away from a sales conversation knowing that you closed every door, you gave them every opportunity to see where this would be of value, and if they say no, they're not ready, or there's conditions, you haven't missed anything. So
that's right.
in your mental.
The only question I ask myself after every interaction is, the only thing I need to know that I have done. Whether they've bought or not is not the question, because that's out of my hands. I can't control that.
Mhm,
My only question is, was I honest and was I thorough?
mhm, mhm,
Did I rush or shortcut or in any way miss anything out that was crucial to help them make the right decision?
mhm.
There's no, I'm not dishonest, but often sometimes we can be dishonest without consciously realizing it. So we can rush past something because we're eager to get to the end, or we can water something down because we're not comfortable with it. So we quickly skip over it. Well, you've got to get comfortable with it.
Mhm, mhm.
So my own self audit is right. Let's just do a conscience check. Is there anything that I just have a look at my conscience? Is there anything there that I could have done different or better in the service of those people?
Mhm,
I'll
mhm.
just sit with it for a minute or two. 99 times out of 100, it's clear. Once out of 100, I've made a mistake. And either I'll try and put it right, or I'll just learn
Mhm.
not learn to next time not make a mistake again.
Yeah. I mean,
And that's something else people need to hear, because a lot of people believe that sales is somehow dishonest, or there's a guilt. If I sell, I'm somehow I feel guilty. No, no.
mhm,
Anything that is dishonest is not sales.
mhm, mhm,
It's dishonesty.
mhm,
Sales is not dishonest. It's pure.
mhm,
It's service. It's pure service. And that's misunderstood. And what people miss is that salespeople, the real salespeople, the real pros, they could not lie, because we have a conscience.
mhm,
And we need to know for our own self-esteem that we did it straight and honest and by the book. Because if we didn't, it doesn't count. We can't congratulate ourselves if it wasn't done properly,
mhm,
because our conscience is strong, and we need to know we did it, and we did it the right way. We didn't cut corners. We were honest, and we were right down the line. And that's when it counts.
mhm,
We can then give ourselves a well done when it's done that way. If we didn't do it right and straight and honest, it doesn't count. What happens is not only does it doesn't count, but it sits on our conscience,
mhm,
and we're not happy about it. And that's reality. That
mhm,
every good salesperson I've ever met, that's how they feel.
mhm.
And then people I've met who don't care about that, and who just say whatever is necessary to get the order, they're not salespeople. They're con artists.
Yeah,
That's not
100%.
selling.
100%. I know enough of
Yeah.
those. I know enough of those. Paul, we've like had this amazing conversation and gone way over time, but it's been massively valuable. Would you please share with our audience what you are gifting everyone today?
Right. And this is a bit of a challenge, because I don't know who you guys are. So, um, so I've got to do because I still take the same approach to this. There's a whole bunch of guys listening. So I've got to be of service, right? So the first thing is, I've put together um, a Canva presentation. So it's I love Canva, and I'm really proud of myself because I've managed to create a video playbook out of it.
I would too.
So this is like, it's like a 90-page Canva presentation, and it is embedded with about 50 live videos and audios of one-to-one sales coaching, and everything from one-to-one real life with clients up to live talks with groups of 300 entrepreneurs.
Oh my God.
Every single subject, everything you've ever thought, heard, or discussed, or been worried about, or wanted answering when it comes to selling or persuasion is answered. There's about 200 hours of live footage of me with people dealing with every possible situation. None of this is real life. You're watching reality, not role plays, not me looking at the screen telling a story. This is just a slice of reality, and that's what I believe is the best way to serve people. It's reality TV.
Amazing.
And what I've done is, there's going to be some people who like it and would like, there will be some people who want more. And therefore, what I have done is, right towards the end, I think on page 86, is I've put together a offer, which is what I believe to be a way of getting everything that we've discussed today, and of getting a really good basic ability to do that. Not to be a master at it, because that costs a lot of money, and I don't know people well enough to make an offer of that substance. So this is how to get actually a pretty good sort of beginning towards that. And therefore, I've created some lessons and stuff, which is again video and what have you. And I've not completely finished it yet, but I will do later. And I'm going to make that, I want to make that affordable to everybody. So it'll be a couple of $100 for something that's going to enable anybody out there who needs to sell and likes the message and wants to sell this way. They will be able to do that at a basic level. So they'll be able to do it with what I'm making available for probably no more than a couple of $100. And then that's, if people want to do that, great. And if they don't, and they just want to enjoy the presentation and take all the videos and get the worth out of it, that's great too.
Okay, so you've got a free upsell. I love it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna let you go to bed. It's like the middle of the bloody night where you're in Bali. Sorry, not sorry. Right?
I've got English UK clients and US clients, one-to-one clients. So I've got calls. So this to me is like 8 o'clock in the morning to you.
Oh, Jesus, it's crazy. Lovely. Okay, Paul, thank you so much. I'm going to hit the stop record, and
thank you.
See you on the other side.
I hope it's been worth. I hope it's been. You know, if your audience can take one thing of value away, it's been worth. That's what my objective is, to give people just one thing that they can take away of value. So
I'm sure they're going to
it's been that.
Way more than.
Thanks for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, you too. I'll see you soon.